Mhm. Welcome to House of Valkyries, mythic living for soul on fire visionary women, where we jam all things sacred energetics, embodiment, emotional mastery, and practical magics for trailblazing your soul-led life. I'm your host, Carly Raemer, and I am joined today by Kristi Higgins, who has been in Valkyries since almost the very beginning, since number two, and has been with me in Deep Container for even longer than that. Hi.
Hello. Hey,
Thanks for hanging out with me today.
thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, my pleasure. It has been so incredible to have been together for so long since 2020.
Hmm.
Yeah, in different ways. And to be by your side through all of the changes and your transformations and expansions. Like, what a ride.
I know, I feel like likewise, it's kind of cool. It's like you're together for a lifetime almost, but yeah, it's just wild. I love it. It's such a vibe.
Yeah, totally. So I want you to feel into that our ride together. So maybe 2020, maybe 2021, 2022, just the swoop of a timeline of a lifetime we've had together.
Mm.
And what was happening for you then? Like whatever then was, like previous to the work, previous to Valkyries, what was Kristi like? What was life like?
Previous to the work, previous to us meeting each other, I think Christy was literally doing her best. She was doing her best. Um, I I feel like I kind of started doing work on myself and work to a better future with myself way back when I want to say around 20, 21, 22. Um, and so it's interesting to think back on all the years where you just kind of felt like you were treading water. You were still doing the work and you still like on yourself, and you still knew someday there would be a place that you would feel less in the murk. And so it's crazy to think back on 20 years before you and I meeting in 2020, how much work really got done, even when it felt like nothing was getting done. Um, but I was just desperately trying to sort out my shit and figure out who I was in a world that I felt everything I was surrounded by was kind of just um, not conducive to that. So always hitting walls, but still always knew that somewhere there was like an end to that feeling, which I'm so grateful for, because I think that holding on to that and knowing it somewhere in my heart kept me pushing forward no matter how hard it was. So it was wild to come together in 2020 when that happened, because I don't even really know how that happened. I was thinking about it today and getting into that container, because the environment around getting into that container alone was absolutely not helpful or supportive or conducive. It was like me on my own tossing myself into the fire here. But for some reason, I just kind of knew that I was at a different level. Like I had come to a certain point and this called to me, and there was something about it. And that really led me to where we are now, 100%. Like there was just a shift. But yeah, she was trying. She was trying so hard to figure out who she was. And it was a struggle. It was a struggle.
Have you figured out who she is?
Oh, yes. Yes, I have.
I know that.
Yes, I have. Um, I feel like I'm still, especially right now, it's just coming out tenfold. Like you hit a certain point. I said this to my mom. I said, I was working so hard to like try to figure out why I was so unhappy and why I couldn't feel like I was myself. Like there always had to be this obvious reason. And I mean, in hindsight, there's this weird obvious reason that we kind of always knew, but like that you were just grinding and hoping that one day this day would happen. And I said to her, I was like, the day actually finally came. And it's so wild to have that like energy shift hit you and like actually feel somatically and physically that everything you'd been doing and all the pain and all the struggle and all the dedication to it, like just all of a sudden was right in front of you. And it like, I was going to swear.
You
And
can
I was
swear.
like, can I swear on a podcast?
You can swear.
I was like, fuck, like it, holy, like it was unbelievable. And then since that moment, I really feel like it's been this waterfall of like effortless release into just pleasure, like this fall into pleasure and being able to know that like I'm now doing it unapologetically. You're still doing it every day and you're still showing up for yourself because there's moments where you retract and you're like, but it's so much easier because it's a non-negotiable. You've gotten to that point where you now know. So yeah, it's just like I definitely know who I am now. At least I see her in the mirror now. And dude, she's fucking rad. Like,
Yeah, she is.
FYI. She is so awesome. I love it. I really never thought that there'd be a point in my life where I'd look in the mirror and like dress for me and like smile at me and know that I was waking up for me, regardless of who's around me, who I'm with, whatever. But like, damn, like that's an aligned feeling that I was like, I always knew was there. And now it's there. And I'm like, fuck yeah. Like you can't go back from that. Nobody
Mm-hmm.
can take that back.
Yeah. Oh, I'm full body chills. This is amazing. Congratulations. What a spot. I've
Well, you
been
were part of it. So I thank you every day too.
likewise, Kristi. I've been in a similar spot myself, and I've been thinking about how, especially when we're in the work and some part of the map in the work, how we're always in it, right? We're like always in transition, and how often we say like in a check-in, we're like, yeah, I'm in between, I'm liminal, I'm transforming, I'm somewhere in between, and how rarely we actually feel landed on the other side in this like I'm fucking here. And like you said, there's
Mm.
stuff like it's going to come up, and there's these moments of contraction and retraction and regression. But to have this somatic sense of like, I'm this is it. Like I've fucking landed. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like something that's hard to explain even because it's not this, I don't know how you felt when that moment kind of came to you, but it's not like this thing you think when you're living in this real society of a world that just like this crazy light bulb moment. It was like this whole, I don't know. It's like your body gets taken over by a different energy. Like it's just it's like all of a sudden you're just there and there's no question. There's just like this like it was like a deep breath. I was like, holy fuck. Something's like something just happened. Something
Mm,
shifted
yeah.
right now, right here. It just came. And it's oh, it's such a landed feeling. And yeah, exactly what you said. It doesn't all of a sudden make your life like perfect. You're not never going to deal with a problem again. You're not like healed, quote unquote, from every pattern and conditioned situation that you're living with. All it really means to me is that I feel stronger and more absolutely aligned with my own integrity to face those situations. So I really think that the difference is just this deeper seated awareness, your awareness of who you are and your awareness of how you're showing up. And I think that's all the difference is. You've done so much to like mirror it to yourself that now you're existing and you can see, you can more quickly take yourself out of reactionary spaces and projected spaces. Like it's still going to happen. You're still going to project your shit. You're still going to be kind of a dick sometimes, but you know, you have this ability to sit back and reflect on it much quicker than normal. And you have the strength to be accountable and you show up for yourself and you show up for the people around you. And that creates your stronger boundaries because then you realize that you're showing up from like the cleanest space possible because you've sat with it. And, you know, when you can see that coming at you, when things aren't reciprocal, when things aren't working for you, you only really know that when you're coming from that clean energy. And like, that's, I think, what it is for me is when it hits us and we have that knowing of like how it changes how we really show up for ourselves. We're still people. We're just, we're just happier, actually. It's a lot more joyful.
Yeah. Yeah. Fuck yeah. There have been a few moments of landing for me over the years. I'm in a fresh one now, and I want to speak to this like this transitional period, and I'm not just for anybody who's listening, I'm not making that wrong. Like Valkyries is all about like embodying the tools to navigate the
Yeah.
transition and the transformation. There's just the phasing, always going through phasing. Um, but yeah, I'm in like a fresh landing. I've stuck the landing of this last uh identity upgrade. But I do remember the very first time when I landed it, uh, and I almost felt like something was missing because my brain was so quiet.
Mm-hmm.
There was this like, is something wrong? Because I had moved just like baggage out of my body. And so my brain was just like being, I was a state of being. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I was like, I was on a hike by myself and was like, this is wild. Like it's so quiet in here.
Yeah. It's such a bomb feeling.
Yeah.
And it is, you're kind of like alarmed a minute when it hits and you're like, oh, and then everything's clear. Like it just, it's so validating and vindicating, honestly. And actually, I can second that. I feel like my most recent like feeling of becoming aligned definitely had steps before it. And I'm glad you said that because I think sometimes I forget over the past 6 years, like these actual celebratory like stages that I got to that were huge, huge shifts at the time. And those shifts led to this. Because if they hadn't have happened, then I wouldn't be here
Yeah.
100%. So yeah, I agree with that. And actually the shifts that I remember having in like 2020 and 2021, mostly 2021, I think the first one really, really hit. And it was like, it was actually not the calm one that hit me in August. It was more like I understood and 100% knew where I was. And it was this huge thrust into a grief cycle because I had to grieve so many like versions of who I was and at the same time like hold them and love them and forgive them. And so they were way less calm, but they were so transformative, even though they were disgustingly hard, like absolutely confronting. But at the same time, they were so grounding and so clear and so celebratory. So you're like sitting here crying, but also like, oh, yes. So yeah, it's funny. I guess they come different levels, different ways, depending on what you've had to process and pass through to get there. So that's true. Yeah. I like that you said that. Sometimes, yeah, I forget the little steps that hit before that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm gonna take us on a timeline jump here. I'm gonna say normally as if there's something normalized here, but there's not really. I would like next I would take us like into Valkyries and like what's this middle zone and what was like that like for you? But I actually want to jump into where you are now. Because you have hinted at me that you have landed in this next chapter of your life. You feel
Oh.
joyful and happy, and I want to know about that.
Mm, I just really have. I'm trying to think right now, like process all the ways that I've been writing about it and getting it out of me to like be able to verbalize it. Although the best thing about that is that I've finally come to a place where I don't actually need to tell people about it, but I want to write about it. I feel like that's been what my life has been, and I like to share the process with people because it's hard. It's fucking hard, and it's long, and it's not easy. So I like to be able to write about it and share about it. So anyway, I've been kind of processing it, but I feel like the easiest way, most basic way to explain it is that in the last 2 months, also for everybody listening, I'm trying my best to bridge the gap between this weird reality we live in where words are like hippie woo woo spiritual shit versus like actually happening.
Hmm.
Um, so I don't know, I have this like level of realism that I try to do it. But anyway, the last 2 months, I just feel as if I finally um like not learned, but really fully embraced unapologetically, which took a really long time. The fact that I'm a woman, which sounds so fucking ridiculous because I'm a woman, but so much of the last 30 years of my life have been really, really subjected to the sometimes the requirement, but also the felt sense of needing to not be a woman, and not to make it like a grand collective thing, although I'm sure it's felt on a collective level, but like needing and required and like to not be me, like who is a woman, because I had to grow up really young um into a protective role, um and felt very unprotected for the majority of my like formative teenage years. And that's not even to subject my parents to ridicule, because I think my parents are fantastic. My parents are also two individuals who are so beautiful, but also have so many things that they've like not been able to surpass. And that stuff gets subjected. Unfortunately, everyone who's a parent, FYI, your shit becomes your kid's shit. Um, so I love them to death, but that's just how I grew up, and then spent the last 15-ish years in a really heavily male dominated space. And a lot of those years, I also didn't have females around me in those spaces. So I would say at least for the first, I don't know, like 6 to 7 years of me working in a space like that, which started when I was around 24, um, you're molding, right? Because at a collective level, we all want to fit in with where we are, regardless of what it is. And when work is half your life, you want to have a workspace where you fit into it. And everybody inherently needs that. We all need connection. And so when you're trying to connect to like a group that you're genuinely biologically not a part of, it's it's really hard. And I didn't actually realize that for a really long time. I felt it, but I didn't know it.
Mhm.
And so I spent so long already entering it as a little bit skewed based on how I grew up, trying to basically mold myself into this woman that was considered like attractive or palatable or, any of those things that a group of men who also, I want to say, a group of men who individually may not have even felt what was being said, but then you have a group think and you have people talking shop talk. And when you're subjected to that and you're young and you're already a little fucking messed up about it, I just spent the last 15 years like trying to be a part of something that I would never ever be a part of because I'm not a man. I'm not a man. And I spent so long trying to be this this woman that I would hear them talk about, but I wasn't even doing it consciously. That's kind of where the messed up part is. It's not like I was sitting around being like, "Oh my God, I should be less sensitive now." I heard them say that yesterday. Like it's not a conscious thought, it's a conditioning. And I mean, I'm sorry, but like 24 is not an adult. Like we don't know. We're still trying to figure out who we are and where we fit. And so, yeah, when I say that recently, like where I am now is embracing that I'm not that and actually embracing who I am, that required me, which is what I started doing back in 2019, um, to like reclaim who I was, but not even reclaim it. Like I didn't know who I was to reclaim it. So I needed to figure it out. I needed to figure out who I was. And I think along the way, like when you start, you don't like you think it's so many things. And then as you go and you start like taking these layers off, you realize that it's not so many things. Like it's like a few of these things really like rooted and branched out into all these little tendrils of shit that you're like trying to like rip them off and get all the way down to the root of it. And it's wild to be where I am now and look back on how all of that stuff affected me and still have so much love for it because I have so much reverence for like the men that I've worked with and the men that I've met and the space that I've been able to work in and the things that I've been able to learn. Like there's so much good that also happened. But just on an unconscious level of trying to be a part of something because even though it was happening at work, it fed into my personal life. And it honestly affected every romantic relationship I ever had up until this point. And like family relationships, it affected everything because it was it's how I felt I had to show up in the world. And sometimes I think back to like some of the breakdowns I would have when I was with my ex-fiance and like it pains me to think of like how he would have to stand there and just like hold me because I would just cry and cry and cry and have no idea why the fuck I was so unhappy. Like no idea when everything that I had built around me was intended to create this fucking life for this person that I was just trying to be and not knowing it, not even knowing it so unconsciously. So to be here in this chapter, I just felt like that needed to be explained because stating that you just feel like a woman is like singing a song or something. But
No, that
it's
was really
like,
powerful. Powerful. Yeah. I'm glad you did.
yeah, it took a lot of work, a lot of work. The last 6 years specifically has been a lot of like learning to actually trust that who I am at my core, my personalities, like just who I am as an individual is fucking enough. It's actually perfect for the right people. And when we don't believe it, we never meet those people, right? Because we're always second guessing ourselves. We don't trust ourselves. Society we live in teaches us not to trust any part of ourselves. So like there's just been so much of those learnings over the past 6 years of like learning to trust that I'm okay, learning to trust that if I show up in an authentic way and I get rejected for it, that I will be that I can hold myself in that and actually experiencing that and holding myself through it and how much it fucking sucked, but that I can do it. I can stand on these 2 feet and I don't need someone, although we all need somebody, but like need someone to actually hold me through it. I can do that because I'm strong enough to do it. And just because I'm feminine and a female and emotional and soft, which are the most beautiful parts about us, by the way, hot as shit. It's also not weak. Those aren't weak qualities. To be able to hold yourself as emotional, hold yourself as soft, and like allow yourself to show up like that, that's strong as fuck. And so that's where I feel like I've been sitting since like the start of August. And it just finally came. And the last 2 months, I have just been like a completely different person. I guess just like I have felt more me in the last 2 months than I have probably ever felt in my entire life, like my entire life. There's not a single time that compares to how I feel right now. And it's pretty fantastic because in being able to hold myself and see myself when I want to retract and like call myself forward, which has happened the last few weeks, and continually to call myself forward, I remain like, I feel like my energy stays clear. Like I'm not projecting, I'm not reacting. And so when things are coming to me, opportunities and thoughts, and like I know how, when they're presented in certain ways, if they're right and if they're just cycles and you take them and you don't need to know the why. Like there's just so many things that have been so positive from it. And this is also the first time that I know where my life feels like it's going. It took me a long time to cycle out of the industry that I've worked in for 15 years. And I now know that the reason why wasn't because I couldn't do anything else, but it was because unconsciously I didn't know where I was going. So, like any other job that I was leaving to was still just a job. And it was still super aligned with what I was already doing because those were the skill sets that I had. So, even if I left this industry, I still wound up in an industry that was the same environment.
Mm.
And it always was. I felt suffocated for so long, and I was so unhappy. And now I feel like, I don't know, last month I just had a really big light bulb. And it's funny, I don't know if I want to announce it on here yet because I'm kind of trying to keep it secret. Maybe I'll tell you privately. But I had an idea the last 10 years that kept like popping into my head about like what I could do with my future. And it would just like was never it at the time. And now I know, because it is it. The reason it wasn't is because I wasn't there yet.
Mm.
There's no way that I could be walking into what I'm now walking into if I wasn't the woman that I am now. And
Mhm.
if I wasn't embodying myself how I am now, because that's what I'm supposed to be doing with this chapter going forward. And it feels fire. Like I am so pumped because it just feels like a gateway is opening to exactly how I want to be able to exist in this world and live my life and leave a legacy that I know that I'm going to be so proud of. So I'm like, I'm fired up.
Hell yeah,
Fired
man, what a cliffhanger. Great.
up.
I can't wait for podcast number 2 or
Yeah.
whenever Chicken with Kristi happens and get to know what you're actually building here. Uh,
Well, if
um
it helps the cliffhanger, like it'll be a 2 year. I had to like, I'm enrolling in a program. So
yes.
cliffhanger will be a little bit, a couple of years to go.
Okay, cool,
It's a
cool.
build up, you know?
Good. We love a good build up. Um so 2 months ago, you feel like all of this like really landed in your body and you're in this new spot. Was that in tandem with coming to Colorado for retreat?
150%. Yes.
Oh yeah.
150%. Yes. Um, Retreat, um, totally, um, shifted literally everything for me. And I knew it, like I knew that's what it was going to do. And it's funny, I've been calling it a retreat to like all my friends when they ask why I went to Colorado. And I don't know what it is, but retreat just doesn't even feel like the right word. But like,
I know.
what else do you call it?
Yeah.
It's the same with Valk. Like when I talk about Valk, I don't even know what to call it because I feel like you call it a women's group and people are like, oh, and they have this like preconceived idea of what it is, or like you could call it therapy, because I mean technically it's also like that. So I've never even known what to call this, so I've started calling it like a women's community, and even then people are like, so I'm like, I don't know, I just don't even like telling you anything. It's just come, just get in. But aside aside from that, yes, with the retreat. And um I don't know, I feel like I didn't really have like this main moment where I knew going to retreat was going to be that, or that I needed it. It's just I already knew I needed it. Like like we said earlier, you and I have been in container women's communities together since fall of 2020. And since then, it's always been online, which is funny because in any other scope, I tend to think that online you don't feel the same. And there is a different vibe for sure, but these groups of us as like wholehearted women just wanting to be seen and heard and felt by other women, because every one of us has issues that we've had with women, like we don't trust women. And I mean, fuck, I've worked with men for 15 years and always been like, oh, it's so much easier to work with men. No, it's not. No, it's different, but it's sure shit not. So like what has built from these last, geez, wow, is that like almost 6 years, like 5 years, has been, I needed it to build for that long, I think. Um, I had a lot to like uncover, and I think I had a lot of my own personal stuff to uncover before I got to the point where I understood how much I needed this community in the way that I did, of women specifically. And so, yeah, you're right. I only missed Valk one. I think it's probably because I went into the other container again another year. But when you started talking about retreat, like it was just the excitement that I had about being able to be in like actual person with you and with a couple of the other girls that they've been with since then, and off and on for me. And especially even some of the women from the actual Valks container last go, was like, it just felt so required at that time. And so it was kind of a, it was like in my head, it was a hard yes. Like there was no question about it. Um, and I didn't quite realize what it was gonna do. I didn't quite realize how it was gonna hit me. Um, Besides the fact that we all see each other in the most open-armed type of way. Like I would say that even in Valks, I feel more connected to most of the women when we're in container than I do with some of my closest friends who I love, but like don't often get to sit down and talk like this.
Yeah.
Mostly, I think, because there's a difference in these containers where you're able to see people in their fall and you are holding them there and not making it mean anything about them. And that's a huge, huge shift from, you have your longtime friends. And I mean, I feel so happy for women who have had that actually in person with some of their friends, but not many women do, to be able to fall apart and feel safe enough to do that, knowing that like maybe your friend's not thinking, oh my God, she's a fucking mess. Like, all that kind of stuff. And somebody tries to help and all that kind of stuff. But
Yeah, we're trying to fix you.
yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of times we don't really need that. We just need to be held and seen, and like, we're real here and we're okay. We're still going to stand up. But yeah, retreat was interesting. So I was super excited. And then on the way there, as we approached the house, I was like overcome with nerves, like overcome with nerves. And I was talking to myself and I was like, what are you scared of? What's what are you scared of right now? Like, you're not meeting anybody new. I mean, I there was a couple of new girls, but like in essence, we also were, because although we've held each other in this space, it's still different to be in person. It's still totally different. And sometimes it can be like really overwhelming because like that connection can be felt so much stronger in person. And I just didn't know what was coming. But I think what I like in hindsight, when I was driving there, I was so fucking scared to like go from being a part of something to being ousted from something for being who I was.
Yeah.
And that was like terrifying, terrifying. I I was just not I was totally didn't like anticipate that or even think about that on the plane to Colorado, anything. It was like the drive there. And I was so glad that I was with Marissa because I think if I was alone, I don't know if I would have got out of the car. Like I would just been like, huh,
Turn around. No.
yeah, just fake it till you make it. Um, but the shift that happened there because of those things was like everything I needed to absolutely like thrust me into where I am now because like we talk about this, but like at the end of the day, everybody's like one of our deepest needs is to literally be seen and held in our like most insanely raw form. And that is fucking terrifying when you are brought up in a society that in some way, shape, or form has told you that that's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So even though we cultivated this, I, and even though I knew I needed to feel that, and that was a deep need in relationship with anything, I don't think I don't think I've ever felt it. Like
Mm.
I've never felt it in an unconditional way, which I hate to say because like I said, I left my fiance in 2019, but that relationship was one of the best things that ever happened to my entire life. He was one of the best things that ever happened to my entire life. And so I hate to say that I've never felt that um, because I did feel that with him, but the difference was that that relationship that the two individuals in it still had those layers to uncover to get down to be able to be their fully raw selves. And that's really hard to do in romantic relationships when you're terrified to be any level of like to go down those levels of intimacy, right? And keep showing yourself and be terrified that they're gonna see you there and be like, I don't know. And a lot of times you have to do it in tandem because it has to be kind of like we're doing it together. So it wasn't that I didn't feel like that with him. I felt him in that way at the level we were at, but I just couldn't get any further. And with this like retreat, that's what happened there. And you and I had a moment because that was how I felt. I was actually terrified to meet you in person. I didn't even know because it was just, we've been through so much and I'm so in awe of you. Like, I'm so amazed and so supportive of everything you've done since I met you and just think you're such a fucking powerhouse that it's funny to then meet you and feel that and feel like a sister, like an actual sister to you, and then show up and feel like inferior to that,
Mm.
which is wild because then you know that your same wounds are coming up. And then, you're always comparing yourself to people. But anyway, I digress because I talk too much. But yeah, that's retreat, feeling that. And I want to say probably end of day 2, maybe start of day 3 was when it really hit. Because the first day was like very dissociative, and I had to continually show up for myself in the forest and like write down what was coming up. Because what was also cool was at that level, we got to retreat, and it was like you could feel all the things happening. The best part was that we all have worked to a level where we refuse to let it run us.
Mm.
So it would show up, right? We're like, fuck this.
Mm.
Like, I'm not letting this ruin my life. It shows up and you're feeling it, and you go and you cry or you move it and you do what you need to do because you're like how I was just like, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. This needs to get called out. I need to call myself out on this in front of people. I need to actually like choose to be seen when I'm fucking terrified to be seen in this right now because this is where we do this. And that's honestly how I felt so strongly in my body about it. And so day one was so like roller coaster.
Yeah.
Day two kind of like leveled out a bit, but like by day three, like I'd never felt so comfortable and so a part of something to be able to wake up and just like, I could be a hot mess. I could have a complete breakdown. I'm a weird person. Like I have a weird personality. I love it. I'm really bold. I say some weird shit. I'm like, my sense of funny is so off kilter. I'm super sarcastic and I'm always worried about how those things are going to be received because like I've never really been my true authentic self around people because I've been scared of it. And so to wake up on day three and like have called all that stuff forward and for the first time felt actually like this group of women looks at me when I'm being this ridiculous in any way. And they're like, fuck, you're hot. Wild. It's wild. And you know it's true. Like you can feel it. You know they're seeing you. You know they're not faking it. And like that, that from these containers, that from Valks, that at that retreat was just like I was ready to call that out and receive that and know what it felt like because then it set a standard. Like that's the standard. The standard is that I show up as me.
Yeah.
I call myself out. I call accountability to how I'm acting. And I am seen. And if I'm not seen, then this is a no. This is a no.
Yeah.
Because I know now how it feels. It's hard to like, it's hard to say no to something when you don't actually know fully what you need. You know it in word form, but you don't know like how your body feels when it actually hits. That's some life-changing shit.
Yeah. That's like really landed in my body too. I'm like, yeah, that's the standard. This is
Mhm.
writing that down in all caps. The standard. Yep.
Standard. Yeah.
Woo. This is so amazing for me to like relive this with you because like I was there. And also there it's almost like this like I was in it, but now I'm receiving this
Yeah.
next version. And so I'm equally like awed. I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
that's so amazing.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, with all of us there, I think well, not I think we know everybody has their own individual experience there too. So even you being our, I want to say leader of the little dragon vibe, you're also having your own experience. So like and having to take certain form and do that stuff. So there's so many like really awesome light bulbs and nuggets and moments that are so fun for us all to be able to relive because it just actually brings us closer to understand like how we've transformed and how we moved and how we affected somebody else and how we were able to show up and like the conversations since then have just been so badass like and the connections that come from that and like the knowing that we all live so far apart for the well, except for the few of you in Boulder, which are lucky get to be close. But I mean, I live in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. Closest person to me, thankfully, is Yannicka. I love her. But like we're all pretty far apart. And it's pretty wild and awesome though to meet these connections and know that like you have sisters in other places. Like I don't just have friends. I could show up to California or I could show up to Arizona or I could show up to Missouri, I could show up to Boulder, I could show up to Regina. And like know that I'm showing up to like, we're just here. And that is like wild because when you have that level of security and strength and safety in a connection, like that fucking changes you.
Mm.
And that keeps it like that even when it's online like this, or we're in WhatsApp, or we're doing whatever, because again, it still upholds a standard. Like, I'm not going to settle for less connection when I know what I have here. And it also helps me understand that the connections that you have with other people are different. Like you can, everyone's going to have like a purpose in your life, but there's still a level of connection that's required. It'll be different and everything, but there's a level of connection. You have to feel that. And I'm so glad that's like, that's what retreat did. Retreat was like landing it. It was, it was the time and place and the right, yeah, in the right time of my journey to have that happen. I don't think that I could have received it had it been last year or the year before. Like I just wasn't there. I wasn't at the place that I needed to be able to take that in.
Sure.
So I just so strongly believe in cycles. And I love that this space, like Valkyries, has just allowed us to have this community where you can keep showing up and keep peeling that back in safety, because you can't do it alone. You can't do it alone. You need space. You need alone space for sure. Like you need to process, you need to do that how each person does it individually, but like you can't do that shit alone. You genuinely need to be able to feel what it feels like to be seen in it, because it helps you keep moving forward. And I like there's nothing that compares to it.
Yeah.
It's hard to explain to people.
Yeah, the places the places in ourselves that we have hidden and deemed unlovable and like really, hold uh hold secretly. These are also places and moments in our lives when we've been um utterly alone, like whether that's like literally alone, or like
Mhm.
next to a person but entirely out of contact, so
Yeah.
completely alone. So when we bring them into contact, into community, and they that's what they learn, is they learn safety and
Yeah.
unshakable love, and everything changes from there. I would like to know how, actually, before I jump into that, for everybody that is listening that doesn't know, we have an in-person Valkyries retreat every summer, so that all of the work online, in a 6 month, just so you all know, Valkyries is getting even longer, like not in Valkyries 6, but moving on, because I
Mhm.
desire to work even more cyclically. So we're going to be even more spaciousness. But we have a retreat every summer to do exactly what happened here, is like land it all home, and to be body to body and just like play. It's so fucking
Yeah.
good. So yeah, I want to know what this is a maybe a big question, maybe not. How your years in Valkyries has has landed you at your arrival now. So you've been in Valkyrie's container for years.
Mhm.
How has that shifted? What has that been like for you to put you where you are in now, where you do feel like you are connected to where your life is going and building your legacy?
I think I almost want to say it's for the same reason of everything that we've talked about. So I feel like for me, the reason that I'm just a constant yes, like even though my first yes to the first session that I was in Valkyries was like a lot of it was actually in support of you, because I was like, F yeah, like let's go. But it also, I don't think at the time I realized through the first couple times that I was in a container, the first one that we were in like changed everything for me. Um, Jumping in, realizing that like this was so much easier with it. Like everything moving forward, all the shifts were so much easier knowing that I had this like safe home to land into. And even if I had to miss a call, I wasn't like ousted from a group. I was still a part of something. People still check in. Um, it honestly was the catalyst. Like actually being in container and in community was the catalyst to getting here. Like you can do all the work in the world, but like I said, I really do believe at a certain point, if you're intentionally really trying to come to the best place that you can be as an individual in your own life, at a certain point you need support. Like you just need it. You need to be held in that safe space. You need to know that it's unconditional and it's not going anywhere. And I think that even in times where I've been in Valks and my work schedule is just so ridiculous where I can make like 4 calls in 6 months, just knowing that it was there and I was in it and had it to fall into literally was everything. Like it sometimes it was the only reason I got through weeks. Like, because I knew that I had this place to chime in on. And even if all I did was cry at a check-in, that I had 10 women sitting there literally in like ceremony with me, watching me, seeing me, holding me, and like helping me move through it and not making it about me. And that was, it's like, man, I don't, you, that's like priceless. It's priceless. And so my time in Valkyries leading to that retreat, like it is the reason that it is the thing that got me there. I think. I think that if I had been doing this work, I would still probably be a bit more on the journey before getting to where I am right now. Because I think that most of the reason I am here right now is because where I came to, I needed that community. I needed to know that this was real, that this existed, that these connections existed. And then, yeah, question was how I got to retreat, right? That's
Or how you
um,
got, I mean, how you got to where you are now. Because like, I mean, you even sent me a message in WhatsApp a couple days ago and you were like, Carl, like I'm so fucking stoked. I'm like lit about my life right now. I can't wait to share it with you. So I'm just, yeah, I'm curious about the Valkyrie stepping stones. That's like um this, but not it's not linear like that, obviously, but like the lily pads that you jumped on to arrive at this like fuck yeah moment.
well, actually, it's funny that you say that it's not linear because I think one of the best parts about it is that even though it's not necessarily linear in containering community, it's still kind of kept almost like a linear cycle for me. So if we're doing it alone, I feel like we can kind of like sometimes feel like we're in an elastic or a bouncy ball and we're going here, here, and like we're just all over the place. And sometimes, even though container was not necessarily dictated in a linear way, it kept bringing me home to certain like really integral parts that I needed to visit. And that was really important because I think some of those integral parts are parts that we on our own would continue to push away because they're hard, right? So actually, although it's not linear, it kept a level of structure at a point in my like journey of uncovering all the bullshit that we have hidden. Um, kept me having to come back and visit some of the shit that I might not have done on my own, at least at that time. So really that's actually one of the most important pieces now that I think about it. So it's cool that you don't say it's linear when it does have a linear-ish quality, or maybe linear is not the right word, but it like kind of like a home beacon almost. It's got these beacons along the way where like you can just be circling in the water, but like you see this light. Okay, every Thursday this light's gonna come in. So you kind of come home to it. And it does kind of guide you. It's like a guidepost because we do always reflect on some of the most major things and most major layers of energy that we're kind of like skipping around on our own. And some of those are harder for some people than others. Like,
Mhm.
I mean, yeah, I've had some hard times with some of the stuff where I'd sit in container and some girls would be able to just like offload about I don't know, their father or their mother. And for a long time I was like, for a long time when I started container, like my dad, I'd never even like focused on my dad. Why would he be like he was maybe a problem, but like, so some of those things you kind of push away. So I think that really did help. And for anybody that's ever wondering or debating like going into a container like Valkyries, that is something that is really, really helpful if you're trying to uncover those parts of yourself, because again, those are really hard to do alone. You can get lost in the rabbit hole and lost in the pain, and you need to know what it's like to be held because it helps you believe that you're going to be okay after it. Helps you believe you can go through the breakdown. So, but yeah, all of that led me here because I feel like now I've built a base because of the support system where I still will always want and need the support system, but I feel like I have a lot more strength, um, resolve, and discipline almost to pull myself to the shit that I don't want to look at without somebody having to tell me that I'm doing it or not doing it. So yeah, like that has really helped get me here, got me to retreat. And I don't know. Now I feel like I just see, it's weird. It's like I see what my future looks like, even though I don't know what it is,
Mm.
which is what is kind of cool. It's a really calming feeling that I have yet to craft into words, so to speak, and I will. It's friggin' poetry.
Mhm, mhm,
But that's what it feels like now. And I keep just confronting things that come up because I'm like, I don't, this is bothering me. This is not going to get me any further, you know? Like, I don't know, I'm in a world as a single person. Like there's a lot of things that come up when you're even trying to meet other people, like all those wounds that you don't face. But now I feel like I'm in this place in my life where I recognize when I'm sabotaging myself. And even if like I don't have a plan or I don't know what's going to go on, like I have an easier time being like, okay, if you say yes to this or you do this, like how much is it going to better you, even if it doesn't turn out in this, like it doesn't need to turn out as anything. It doesn't need to be anything. It's just like if it's here and it feels okay, why not just do it? And so I feel like I'm just really actually living. I'm practicing what I preach to every possible way, which I know there's been times in your life where you can say things and you're like, fuck, like, am I doing that? And now
mhm.
I'm doing it. Like I'm straight up looking at life and I'm doing it. So I think that's what lights me up. I'm just like, it feels really validating and I'm proud of myself. Like I feel really proud of myself when I do it because I'm like, fuck yeah. Like that's how you live. It's how you're supposed to live. I'm pretty bold. Now I'm being bold and I love it.
Great.
Love being bold.
Great.
So,
Amazing. Okay, we have we're gonna wrap up, so just like a couple more minutes. What what do you want the women who are called to Valkyries to know? What do you want to say to them?
mm, just if it's calling you, just do it. Just go. It's what I did in 2020. I had no logical reasoning. I had no support. I was dating somebody who thought it was a garbage idea to pay money to somebody who didn't have a psychology degree or like jump into, you know, like absolutely attacked about it. And I was like, I felt it. I was like, no. And I couldn't even explain why. I knew it and I don't regret a single shred of it. So, to the women who are debating it, get inside with us because it is so much better in here on this side. It is so much better to live in this world actually authentically. And it is very hard to find your authentic voice alone in a world that makes it so like rebellious to be yourself, to be who you are. And that's bullshit because there's a lot going on in this world. And this world needs women who are just wanting to be the woman that they are. Like women are so hot. Like we are hot bitches. I'm sorry. Women are so hot. And like women who are unapologetic about being women in the way that, you're not parading it around, you're just showing up. You're just being who you are. You're being your feminine space. You're being that strong beacon. Like that shit's hot as fuck.
Yes.
And just if it's calling you, don't even question it. You do not need a realistic reason for it. It's nobody's goddamn business. Something came to me on the plane the other day when I was going to Alberta. And this is what I will say to you. If you need a reason and you're being called, your answer is just because, period. It doesn't need anything after that. Nobody needs a reason for you to do something for you. No one. If you know it, that's what matters. Why are you going there? Why would you do that? Why would you jump in? Why would you? Because, because. So come and join because it's sexy over here, I think.
Me too.
And you just have so much love. Like it's a next level thing. If you have girlfriends, I'm proud of you, but like this is a different vibe. And there's something about it that allows you to bring this into your real life in the sense of the people that are physically around you. Like it expands us. So my advice is just listen to yourself. Listen to your body. Your head's going to tell you not to do it because everybody around you is telling you that. But if you feel it and you know when you'll feel it, just don't ignore it. Just do it because you won't regret it. And it's going to be hard, but it's
Yep.
so worth it. That's my advice.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Kristi.
I love you.
I love you too. Okay, Valkyrie 6 starts next Tuesday. That's in not that many days from now. 5 days, 6 days, 5 days. And it's a new standard. This is
Mhm.
of all of the things that we talked about, this feels like the thread or the through line through this last hour. And also like that really landed something in me that I'm gonna continue sticking to. But yeah, Valkyries is the new standard, like the standard. You
Mhm.
were setting the standard for who the fuck you are in this world and what you're bringing.
Yeah,
So, like
totally
Kristen said,
is.
just because, get here, you know it. Come land with us. It's sexy.
Yeah. Can't wait to see you.
Can't wait to see you. All right. Thanks, babe.
Love you.
Love you.